For this week on Cyberschool, we're talking about the paging server update. You have probably seen some email updates about, this launch. Of course, if you're watching this video, pretty recently after the upload date, you've probably been seeing and hearing from CyberData that we've got an update for the paging server coming out. Well, it's finally here. We've released the paging server update that encompasses a whole bunch of different features. And in my time at CyberData, a little over, just about 7 years now, this is the biggest update we've ever done in terms of features in here. There's, 5 gigantic features that we've included in this new update. Any one of those 5 would have been, quite a major update in the past. Well, this one is absolutely jam-packed. It's the largest firmware update that we've ever done in the history of CyberData. And of course, it's available for free on our website. You can download it there. But with that, let's get into a little specifics about what's in the update and what actually has been updated. So in the update, of course, we've got a new calendar for our bell scheduler. We took the existing scheduler that was acceptable and made it actually a really good option with calendar support, as well as keeping that legacy option in there for the users that did like the older style of scheduler that we had. We added support for our Wi-Fi alert button, so that way it's not only used in the Informacast environment, but it's also capable to use with our SIP paging server now. So that way you get a lot more capability out of the paging server, and you can utilize those buttons in a non-Informacast enabled environment. We're adding in a separate login capability, so that way you can have different tiers of users. Of course, your admin user will still have access to everything, but you can create specific users that only have specific access to different pages. So that way you can have somebody that only has access to say the schedule capability, and you can keep the actual the rest of the pages locked down. So that way only the administrator can have access to it. We've got call-in recording for stored messages. This was a really big requested feature that we got to be able to just call in and record a message on the paging server. And now we have it, as well as enhanced poly paging. So with these 5 different updates, in addition to a whole bunch of other random bug fixes, too many to mention, not that there was a whole bunch of bugs, but there's always bug fixes in any code update that you put out. This really kind of encompasses the update. But for a little bit more specifics, we'll go through the different, specific features that we updated in here. So for the calendar update, of course, we added a calendar-based bell scheduler. A lot of the feedback that we got with our legacy-based scheduler, as we're referring to it now, was that it wasn't really great for schools, and just the visual aspect of having it appear in a calendar, kind of like everybody does with their meetings or what have you, in their Outlook calendar, their Google calendar, what have you. Everybody's kind of used to that. So being able to have a calendar-based presentation for the different events was really beneficial for users. We added in the capability to store multiple schedules on the device itself. Beforehand, you basically had a single schedule loaded on box on the device, and you had to manage those off-site. So it was, say, on the, admin's desktop computer, or, on a shared file, maybe somewhere in the cloud. And it was kind of a pain to be able to juggle and manage different schedules on there. But with the available space that we have on the paging server, you can do all of that on the box itself. So that way you don't need to manage and juggle different things. And if somebody's on vacation, you need access to their machine to be able to get the different schedule files. Everything's just there on box, ready to go. And as we were going through and designing the calendar, we did some different market research, and we found that color coding is very popular as you're going through and doing different schedules. So that way you can tell just at a glance, say if the schedule is, green, that's for, early release days, or if it's blue, that's state testing or what have you. You've got that different color coding capability to make it just even easier in terms of management. You can tell from just a quick glance based on the colors that you have selected for the actual schedule or the individual events. Gives you a really quick, easy way to identify, say, the start of the day, the lunch bell, what have you. We also added in an easier way to set up reoccurring events in just about any interval that you want, whether it's in individual minutes, hours, combinations of that, say 90 minutes, what have you, days, or even weeks capabilities. So that way, if you want to, say, run, say different specials, your proverbial blue light special in a grocery store every 15 minutes, or you want to run, say, a bi-weekly weekly test of your paging system just to confirm that it's still functional, you can do all that with the reoccurring event generation. It makes it really, really easy to streamline all of that. And this is just stuff that we considered as we were going through and adding all of this capability in there. One of the other features that we added in is the just really easy way to be able to delete individual events. This has been a very cold, very rainy, very wet winter, and there have been a lot of snow days across the country. And instead of having to, delete an entire schedule, now you can just go in there and delete individual events out of a day to say clear out a day if it's a snow day, or to make extra time in a day, say if it's an early release day that changes suddenly because some of the events in the general area. So that kind of encompasses a lot of the major features of the calendar update that we added in. Next, we get into the Wi-Fi button support. As I mentioned, we've had our Wi-Fi alert buttons for a while, but they only worked with single wire and Formicast. But now they work in just about every environment with the SIP paging server. And basically, the way that these things work is when the button is pressed after it's associated with the paging server, and of course it's on the Wi-Fi network, it can trigger a stored message that will play to a particular page group. And that's all pre-configured. So that way you can have these different emergency alert buttons just stuck around your different facility, and you press it and it can make that basic announcement to a different page group. But it can also trigger a call to a predetermined number. So these are effectively an easier way to have a call button through your different facility if you've already got the infrastructure of a SIP paging server set up, but you might not have the capital available to do a full dedicated hard-lined Ethernet run for different call button installations. And the way that the buttons actually work after they're pressed is it creates a queue, so that way they're played sequentially. So if you've got several different buttons that are pressed in some kind of an order, they're all going to play sequentially. So that way, it's a first in, first out style. So that way you don't have to worry if multiple buttons are pressed in a very close time span that whose button is going to play when and where, or is my button event going to be heard. It all goes into a queue and then they're played sequentially. And of course, the number of buttons that's going to be supported is dependent on your network topology and how your network infrastructure is set up. And if you have any more specific questions about that, please always just reach out to us and we'd be happy to go over that in a little bit more detail with you. Next, we move on to the separate login functionality. This is by far one of the biggest requests that we got for the paging server, just in terms of adding in different logins. It can get kind of, dicey and scary if you're giving out the admin login, basically the full keys to the kingdom, to everybody, just to be able to manage different schedules on, say a paging server to manage the bells for a school. Not that, you'd be worried that the employees would, take down the system or delete everything. But that fear is always there, and if we can remove that by creating a separate login functionality, we did that. So you can go through and actually create different accounts to log into the device, and you can grant them access to specific pages, and they'll only have access to those specific pages. So that way, you can really limit the access. And presently, there's no limit to the number of accounts that you can have on the device itself. You can have a bunch, you can have a few, you can, theoretically have thousands of them. I'd be surprised if you did, but you probably could. It just depends on the available size that we have available on the unit itself. Although, just because I said you have 1,000 doesn't mean you should try that. You probably wouldn't need that many, but I wouldn't try it. As we move forward here, we can move into the call-in stored message recording. This is another feature request that we got from a customer where they just brought up, it was kind of frustrating to, record an audio file on some other separate program, convert it into the particular format that our devices require, and then upload it to our device. And I spoke with our engineering team and brought up those issues, and they had basically a working prototype of being able to do that within a day or two, and added that into the paging server. And it'll also follow into some of our other products down the line that can utilize the stored message recording. But basically, it allows you, as an opt-in style feature, it's disabled by default to call into the paging server. And it'll prompt you to enter your 2-digit zone number or go through a series of button presses to actually allow a recording of a message through the paging server. And once you go through that process, you can associate it through up to a particular page group through essentially the IVR, kind of the automatic dialer. It's kind of like recording your voicemail on your cell phone. You say it, you press, star or pound or what have you, let you hear it back, you play pound to confirm, you associate it with a group, and then you're done. And the nice thing as we went through doing this, we gave the capability to actually rename and then pull the audio files off the paging server. So that way now if you've got a SIP paging server, you have an easy way to create these stored messages in the particular format that our devices require. And you can just call into the paging server and do that there. So that way, if you've got a site that might not have a paging server and might have something like, say, a paging adapter or a speaker, you can record everything and make the audio file in the particular CyberData format on the paging server and export it really easily. So no need to mess with other funky programs like Audacity or other recording software. You can do it directly with CyberData hardware and have the confidence in knowing that it's going to be in our particular format as we go forward. Next, and finally, to our last feature, we've got enhanced poly paging. One of the, honestly, kind of the pain points in designing a multicast-based paging system with a lot of our products and just general VoIP is working around poly paging. Poly devices, formerly Polycom, their phones use channels for multicast paging instead of the standard paradigm of a unique multicast address and port for each priority. Polycom does, quote, channels. And it always created a problem if you're intermixing different equipment in addition to the poly equipment. Say if you've got mostly poly phones for a lot of your stations, but then you've also got, say, Yealink phones, but if you're just mixing in stuff like CyberData speakers, it gets complicated to work around the different paging groups or the channels in the poly environment. So we added the capability for each page group or P group, as we refer to them, to a specific channel. As an example, you can have P group number 1, 01, when you call the paging server is channel 1, and P group 2 can be channel 2, so on and so forth through the different groups. So this allows the paging server to page to every single Polycom channel, which honestly makes it better than paging to Polycom phones, which is just kind of cool. And with this kind of nice feature addition that we did, it's honestly overshadowed by all of the other features that we put in. With a CyberData paging server, it removes all of the headache of designing multicast paging around polyphones. It can become such a pain to deal with that. And with this one change in this free software update, it takes away all of that headache. So to summarize everything, again, this is going to be the biggest update that we've ever done in the history of CyberData in terms of a firmware update with these 5 gigantic features that we've done. That each one of these would have been an individual release. We jam-packed it all into one. And with the improved calendar-based scheduling, multi-user login, and the Wi-Fi button support for emergency notification, this makes the paging server an even better fit for schools where you can drop this in, and this is a complete scheduling and emergency notification solution that you can provide in a single package. And the thing that I really just got to hit on is the majority of the features that we've put in here, and honestly, the upgrades, especially with our calendar-based schedule, is directly from customer feedback. When you talk to our different sales engineers or sales folks or even our technical support team, we take all that feedback and we pass it directly back to our engineers, and they take it to heart and try to improve our products however they can. And we can come out with these really big jam-packed updates that again are available completely for free. So if you want one of these, go ahead and check your serial number for your paging server. Make sure that it starts with numbers 1462. And if it does, you'll be able to download the update in the link in the description below.
Thank you for watching this edition of Cyberschool. If you have any questions, please get in contact with our sales department. They are available by email at sales@cyberdata.net or by phone at 831-373-2601 extension 334. Please make sure to like this video and subscribe for more content like this from CyberData.